So George Clooney is absolutely furious, it seems, with former President Barack Obama because he feels like he has been turned into a patsy of sorts after writing his op-ed earlier this year, which was used as a means of helping push out Joe Biden from the presidency, to get him to forfeit his bid to run for re-election so that they could try to install Kamala Harris. And I thought it was an interesting thing to discuss because what I wanted to talk about was the idea that when we talk about actors, at least here on PCC, a lot of the audience tends to be political in nature, and they come to our show for a mix of, talking about the actors who do delve into politics. They're looking for a bit of a break from the depressing nature of politics in general, and we try to give them that, and I think we do a pretty good job of finding where the line is. And, we'll cover the big stories. Obviously, there was more of it leading up to the election, but we try to make it fun. And one of the things that you see a lot from the average person commenting, and they're right in a lot of ways, and in some ways I think they're not, is they say that they would never take advice or info from somebody who lies for a living about politics. And while in a way they're true, they are professional pretenders. That is something that a lot of them say. What I think people forget in that situation, at least when it connects to politics, is that, look, the politicians are the professional liars. They are the ones who work in tandem with the media and the lobbyists to craft narratives to help pass bills and legislation that more often than not, as we know, doesn't help the American people. And actors are at the forefront of pushing that, especially, in the last 16 to 20 years. Look, I think a lot of it goes back to when Barack Obama was first elected, and even in my formative years before I really understood anything about politics, I thought it was strange how much time the guy spent, going on late night shows. And now we look at Barack Obama, who is deeply involved in politics, but also deeply involved in Hollywood, because he understands that you don't just shift culture through policy, you shift culture through entertainment and media. So there was this article, I put Cher up there. There was this article from Breitbart the other day that I wanted to talk about. It says, George Clooney is furious with Obama for using him as a patsy in Kamala's defeat. So it says, the bromance between George Clooney and Barack Obama is reportedly on the rocks. But the Hollywood star is said to be furious with Obama for setting him up as a patsy to end President Joe Biden's career and then absorb the blowback from Kamala Harris's election defeat. And that is ostensibly what happened. So after the disastrous debate performance that Joe Biden had, where, it looked like they stopped giving him the CIA super drugs and he really couldn't, hold his own on the debate stage, everyone started to panic and celebrities started to panic. And leading up to that point in the election, Hollywood was very, very quiet. They hadn't kicked it into high gear because they didn't have faith in Joe Biden winning the presidency, and there was no money being put into the campaigns. And once Joe Biden dropped out, which was helped greatly by the op-ed that George Clooney wrote, the money then started coming in droves. Money was absolutely dumped into the Harris campaign to the tune of over $1 billion. And you started seeing all of the absolutely insane, Hollywood celebrity endorsements. I think my favorite is the girl from Paramore reading off the script while on stage, or Cardi B on stage. All of the, everyone's reading off a script because it's not organic. They don't care. What they want is to have the right side of history politics, and then they go from there. So it says, George is furious with Obama for disappearing after the election disaster and leaving him holding the bag for pushing the plan with his Hollywood pals. Says an unnamed entertainment source from Radar Online. Always be wary, just on the forefront, guys. Remember, one of the things that media does is they give you unnamed sources or somebody familiar with the investigation. And look, back in the day, that type of anonymity was seen as something of a virtue because of pushback and blowback for particularly spicy or influential pieces of journalism, which could cause problems for the people that helped expose things. But these days, there is a very liberal usage of those types of sources so that they can use it to craft narratives without having to worry about people actually proving that those sources were real. And it's one of those things that I always try to draw attention to when you see them in articles. It says George emerged as a major player in the 2024 presidential debate cycle when he wrote a New York Times op-ed calling for Joe Biden to give up his re-election bid following his disastrous debate performance. Sorry today, guys, I can't read. Given George Clooney's friendship with Obama, many pundits assumed the op-ed was written not only with Barack Obama's approval, but at Obama's behest. I really can't read today. With the former president seemingly using his Hollywood buddy as a hitman to stick a knife in Joe Biden's political career. See, that's what's funny about it, is we deal a lot with actors who tell you or me, normal, everyday Americans, how to behave. Now, what I find funny about that is that shouldn't be a left or right issue. It just so happens to be true that the majority of Hollywood that is vocal about politics happens to be left. And that's always made sense to me. What I find interesting is, like, look, art as a whole has always, look, we can talk about Lord of the Rings, we can talk about great art that was created by conservatives, but art today is done by the theater kids and the college educated elites and the ones who are prone to a more emotional take on some type of art or story. And in today's culture, that is a very left-wing idea. There is great art created by those on the right, but the mainstream art that is created today is predominantly left-leaning, and that's just the way it is. But when you think about it, look, actors who will talk about you or I being too dumb to know who to vote for, whether it's Sharon Stone or Alec Baldwin, both recently talked about how basically Donald Trump was reelected because we Americans are just too dumb to understand the implications of what electing him would do. Never mind the fact that he was already president once, and outside of a pandemic that was outside of his control, the world did not end, as we know. And despite that, despite their arrogance and their hubris and their desire to lecture us on who to vote for and how to live, I will ride around on private jets while you do not get to have a gas car because of climate change, they are usually used as useful idiots by these politicians, which is what I find so funny. You can dunk on Clooney all you want. Look, he had a movie that came out this year called Wolves, which nobody went and saw. I actually wanted to, and it got pulled from theaters and then went to Apple TV Plus, and I refuse. It's the one streaming, like, I've had them all. I will not get Apple TV Plus. I don't have a handlebar mustache, and I am not highbrow, so I don't have Apple TV Plus. But it wasn't his year in that respect, and he was left holding the bag here because whatever you want to say about Barack Obama, he is an excellent political maneuver. He's excellent at maneuvering politically and getting what he wants out of a situation without leaving his hands dirty. His hands always come up clean to the American people. So that makes perfect sense to me. But it's always hilarious, the hubris in which they speak to us, because they are usually used as pawns by political elites to push causes that they don't fully understand. Look at them all talking about Project 2025 and reproductive rights, which 5 Google searches could tell you that Donald Trump said, look, I have no idea about Project 2025. I have no interest in it. It's not going to be any of my mandate. And he certainly went out on multiple occasions and said, look, I am not coming for your reproductive rights. I am not going to sign a federal abortion ban. I would never do that. And all it takes is a couple of Google searches and the willingness to believe that you've been lied to by a biased media, but they don't want to do that. And I'm going to hold out hope for that at least some of these people come to terms with it when they look at things, a year from now or 2 years from now, and they see what hasn't been done that they thought was going to be done to them. But the problem is, I don't think that that's going to happen. What you're going to get is you're going to continue to get the likes of the Sharon Stones and the Alec Baldwins and the Rob Reiners and all of these people who want to lecture you despite the fact that they don't understand the plight of the average everyday American. And I think the best way to describe it, not just the hubris, but the absolute disconnection from reality, was the ad that George Clooney put his voice to. If you guys remember this, that was absolutely just condescending in every way possible towards average everyday American men specifically, which Hollywood in the last 20 years doesn't seem to have much interest in doing things for unless it's going to earn them a hefty paycheck or it's going to get them political points, right? The mandate is no longer to cater to male audiences. The idea is that you cater to female audiences. I think the logic was always in the past was that in the home, the woman controls the pocketbook, so you always advertise to women. But now it's gone far beyond fiscal responsibility or marketing in that respect. Now it is ideological. And he lent his voice to this ad. And I will admit, like, I didn't think Trump was going to win. Maybe it's because I have to read the news every day, and I was constantly it was just a barrage of pro-Harris, you know, whether it was endorsements or articles. We know now that, you know, George Clooney went out and did this at the behest of Barack Obama. And we know now that the Harris campaign had no evidence whatsoever. There were no actual polls. There was no polling data that ever showed her in the lead. Yet he goes lockstep with what he does and says now that he vows to not be anyone's political pawn in the future. And I wonder why he would do that to begin with, why you would want to do that to begin with. A lot of people would put that on guilt from celebrities for the money they have. You know, the average Marxist celebrity who buys into the oppressor versus oppressed narrative has a hard time reconciling the money that they have from their career versus the narrative of the industry that they work in. So it says, George feels like he stepped up and took a bullet for the team, and now everyone's complaining about the bloodbath, said a source. Lots of celebrities like Beyonce were on the campaign trail pumping up Kamala, but George became the face of the Hollywood liberals by directly calling for Biden to end his campaign and throwing the whole process into chaos. He thinks Obama should come forward and say that George did the right thing and isn't his fault that it didn't work out, the source continued, but he doesn't expect that that will be forthcoming, that he will be forthcoming. It's left George feeling like a patsy. Yes, well, I was reading that he said that he has vowed to no longer be anyone's political pawn. Bro, you should not have been anyone's political pawn from the beginning. And the first thing that the average celebrity should do when you start entering the gated community culture is ask yourself, am I connected to the average everyday person anymore? You know, it's very easy to go on what you think is right. It's very different to go and look at what other people are saying and asking, do they have a point? Right? So taking perspectives from everyone is important, but if you're a big-time multimillionaire, look, you're not always going to do that. But I want to play this ad before I go because I just thought you would enjoy watching this one more time so that you could see just how disconnected they were from the average everyday person leading up to the election. If you're a guy, I don't normally give you trigger warnings. You know, I think trigger warnings are for pussies most of the time, but this is a cringe trigger warning if you never saw this.
Come on, boys. Let's make America great again. It's your turn, buddy.
Before you cast your vote in this election, think about how
it's like they just looked at some type of it's like they've never seen an average everyday dude before. They don't drive by the average blue-collar worker and think about it. They just drive by and think, I know what's best for you. So they're giving you some type of facsimile of what they think the average everyday American dude looks like.
It'll impact the people you care about the most.
Daddy!
Remember, you can vote any way you want, and no one will ever know.
Do your patriotic duty?
You bet I did, brother.
What happens in the booth stays in the booth.
They did the same thing for women, where they advocated lying to your husbands. Lying. Was it Jennifer? And it might have been Jennifer Garner who did that ad. If I remember correctly, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think it was Jennifer Garner who ended up lending her voice to that ad. And the big idea is for you and me to lie to our loved ones about what we believe for the sake of leftist politics. So that's all, guys. I just thought it was funny. The celebrities will look down on you. The celebrities will tell you that you're the problem. You're uneducated. You're uncultured. You haven't traveled enough. You don't understand how the world works. Therefore, you're too stupid to vote for the right person. There is absolutely zero introspection. There's zero thought as to whether they themselves might be the reason why Trump not only won the election, the Electoral College, but the popular vote, giving him a mandate to start when he takes office on January 20th. They will not learn any lessons from this. Things will not change. The business side of things are going to probably attempt to work with Trump more. Certainly David Zaslav and other Amazon, Jeff Bezos have congratulated Trump and probably want to lean into the idea that they could be friends with the guy, or at the very least work with the guy in a manner that would help their businesses. I know Zaslav in particular talked about how Trump would be great for the idea of mergers and acquisitions. These companies don't want to get broken up. They don't want to have their attempt at monopolies taken down. So the business side could possibly be more, friendly to Trump, but the actors, they're not going to understand it. They're not going to look inwards at why they lost, or why somebody like Barack Obama, a brilliant political strategist, was able to use them and then discard them. Nothing will be learned. Everything will remain the same. Guys, if you think that is true, let me know down below, or maybe you disagree with me. I know some people don't agree that they think Barack Obama is a brilliant political strategist, but look, the guy's already started his production company for years now, working in Hollywood, because he was smart enough, over a decade ago, I think, to understand that you don't change the culture through policy alone. You change the culture through movies, television, social media. He's been at the forefront of that as far as melding both politics and entertainment together. And a lot of people would say that that's what got us into this place. I think it takes a smart person to understand that and start pushing that direction. Let me know down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Guys, stay tuned. We are live, of course, every day, Monday through Friday, Pop Culture Crisis, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you there. Later, guys.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.